You're tough enough to push through pain, handle pressure, and perform when it matters. But why is asking for help so hard? In this video, I'm going to be talking about why strength doesn't mean silence and why vulnerability actually makes you a better athlete. Hi, everyone. My name is Paris Stu. They call me P2. I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and I work with weight class athletes on performance nutrition. Now, over the past decade, I have definitely noticed more than a decade. This is a decade of coaching over the past however many years of my life. I've noticed that the strongest athletes aren't the ones who never struggle, but they're the ones that are brave enough to actually admit it and also seek support. Now, before I carry on, disclaimer and important note, I am not a mental health professional or a sports psychologist. Everything that I am sharing is from my personal experiences as a coach and as an athlete. Of course, for serious mental health concerns, please seek professional support. I perceive that athlete culture equates asking for help as weakness. And I think there's an opposite to it also, where there is a I'm going to save you narrative. So one is you need to be saved, or asking for help makes me weak. Both of them drive me bananas. And hence these conversations. Perhaps you've been conditioned or believe that struggling is something you handle alone, or it's also the price to pay. It's like, well, obviously, no pain, no gain, right? It's part of the process. And we'll dive in a little deeper into that in a moment. But in my opinion, that mindset actually creates more isolation. It could very well impact mental health and actually performance. To start off with a personal story, I mentioned that my nickname is P2. So I used to go by P2 Strong. That was the name of my blog, the name of my website, my coaching brand. I had a shirt with the logo P2 Strong. And I thought that was so clever, a play on my name and great branding. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm a strong woman and I like heavy weights and putting them down and doing contact sports and combat sports. And yeah, but in reality, that was also a mask, a very one-dimensional version of me where it was rather hyper independent. It's like, no, I got this. I don't need nobody. And after much work with various incredible people I've worked with over the years, I really recognized that it was just me sort of masking my insecurities, my fears. And when I started to do that, I started to recognize that I went a little too far. Before I expand on that, there's one thing that's important. In the world of sport, sometimes we may talk about developing an athletic identity where, especially if it's something like, if it's more high pressure, or if there is combat or contact, where you can create these personas or you can create these qualities and characteristics of this identity, which is quite positive to turn on the performance competitive side. I think where I'm coming from is that this went a little too far and I kind of embodied that mask for every aspect of me. I just equated strength to having it all together on my own and not needing help and I got this. Like, yeah, but the reality is not true. We all need people in our corner. I really credit much of my entire existence as an adult to growing up in the world of rugby and in that community and that cohesiveness and that team camaraderie that you need. And I recognize this in all sports, even in individual sports. You may not have like an entire team of athletes, but you still have a team of coaches and administrators and other people. So all of that to say, I wanted to share this story from a personal space and really, really grateful for the sports psychologists, the therapists, the mindset coaches, the mental health consultants, and all of the people that have helped me recognize over the years, my value as a person, the ability to ask for help and to receive it, because that was part of it. I just kind of would ask for help, but wouldn't take the help. That one was a pickle. Anyway, I am very much open to asking for help, receiving help, and wanting to offer the help to anyone I can as we all move towards being human first, athlete second, and enjoying our sports and kicking ass at whatever we choose to do in life. From that story, let's move on. Over the next few minutes, I'm just going to share my opinion, some of the reasons that athletes don't ask for help. Then, of course, I'm going to offer some suggestions. Reason number one: fear of appearing weak. You might think that admitting that you're struggling means that you're not cut out for your sport, especially if it's a sport that's supposed to be tough. you gotta be tough, mental toughness. And there is an entire field dedicated to this. That's why there's sports psychology. There's also psychological safety in high performance sports. That's a whole other field of study. And there's various organizations committed to this, from amateur athletes to people that just want to enjoy fitness to elite professionals. And having the psychological safety, which is that container of being able to feel safe in vulnerability, can actually enhance performance and improve competition. For example, if an athlete feels safe to admit their struggles amongst their teammate or their coaching staff, then they know that someone has their back. And maybe there is like less mental load or pressure. You have outsourced, you've gained on some support. Maybe you're making better decisions, which then reduce that stress load. Overall, just because you're asking for help doesn't mean you are weak. And it is understandable when we perpetuate that mental toughness. And it's unfortunate, but this is why we're having these conversations. And I am a massive supporter of when higher level athletes and professional athletes share their stories so that we could reduce the stigma, normalize it a little bit, and just see people as people at every level. Number two, perfectionism and imposter syndrome. Okay, so this one I relate to a lot. Maybe you think that you should have it all figured out, and that asking for help exposes that you do not have it all figured out. Fraud. There's a difference between having pride and integrity when you're presenting, that you're like, yeah, I put my best foot forward. I put in the effort. I put in the work. I am proud of this. But some perfectionism is just, it's procrastination. You're delaying out of fear. And this perfectionism can increase stress. It could just drain your mental energy to able to execute and perform. And imposter syndrome is very interesting to me because I feel like we have a lot of conversation around that more often these days. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing where it pushes you to be a bit more curious and to try a little harder, to seek external resources. Sure. It's when it goes a little too far that now you start to undermine your own knowledge and kind of again use it as a procrastinating tool where you're seeking more than you need. I think, down a rabbit hole of so many various self-help books because I had imposter syndrome and I was trying to improve myself. In reflection, some of them I question if I implemented some of the things I was reading, or it was like in the name of perfectionism. I just kind of made myself feel better by being like, yeah, I'm reading the book about this. Great. And what are we doing with this information? What are we implementing? How are we talking about it in our discussions with our teammates and our interpersonal relationships? And also on the perfectionism imposter syndrome for athletes, of course, we say things like, the work is in the preparation, especially if you're doing a competition. You do have to put in the reps. You do have to put in the volume. You do have to put in the work, of course. And you do perform like how you practice. Of course, you do want to practice until it becomes intuitive, until it becomes reactive, until you don't even think about it. So you're executing in competition. But at what point does it cross over to putting in the work and then kind of being able to let go of that heaviness of perfectionism and imposter syndrome and having the confidence in the preparation? I'm not sure, honestly. So if you have any thoughts on that, I would love to hear them in the comments. Please share below. Okay. Potential reason number 3, fear of losing the competitive advantage. Maybe you think that it gives you that edge, right? But if you're not asking for help, it could actually help you lose your edge, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is, where are you letting your support network support? Are you relying on them? Are you isolating? That strong support really does contribute to athlete success and resiliency. And especially if there's stress, if there's an injury, it's like having that support system, professional and social, is really, really important. And it's not just the knowledge, like I was saying earlier, it's the implementation, and it's the courage to be vulnerable and be like, yeah, you know what? I do need people to support me, lift me up right now, remind me of my own words, or just to be present with me. And it doesn't always have to be when it becomes an emergency, like when you're having a panic attack and need to speak to a mental health professional. It could be just creating little pockets of safety and support as you're going through it so that you can actually strengthen your competitive advantage. It's really cool when your whole team shows up and you have each other's back. There's just something wonderful. And even in individual sports, I am just very aware of that social support. And I really, really appreciate teamwork. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. And potential reason number 4 is learned self-reliance from sport culture. And it could be like sport as a whole or like the culture of the gym, team, or environment that you're in, where it's like you got to figure it out on your own. Perhaps there are certain things that we're all responsible for. For example, in rugby, there is individual skills. There's certain things that you do on your own, and then you come together with the team, but you have put in the work for the individual skills. And when you're with the team, you're working on gameplay, game strategy, execution of set plays that require the people, the volume of players on the field. Then in, let's say, Muay Thai, you have your certain individual skills like bag work, your conditioning, your strength, shadow boxing, taking responsibility for injuries and for your nutrition and for your recovery and for your sleep. And then there's stuff that you need to be doing with other people, like clinching, pad work. You can't do that on your own. Sparring, like then it's an application of what you've done on your own. So where this is relevant is that there is a balance. It's not one or the other. You can't only be by yourself and then be put into a game-like situation. And this would be true also for mental health and mindset and asking for support, is that carrying it all on your own just doesn't make any sense. There's a fine balance. There's some self-responsibility, and then there is like a team responsibility, and having standards for psychological safety, having certain standards for wellness for the athletes is really important. It's to ensure that holistic health we talk about. If you really want people that are able to perform, you also look at the other things that they need, and it is to make sure that they are supported in a multifaceted fashion. Because essentially, you don't want them to deplete their resources just trying to survive instead of being able to thrive. So everyone has a role and you're doing it together, and there's conversation and there's feedback and there's discussion. And ultimately, it's the best part of sport culture where we have, that camaraderie, pride, and the sportsmanship, which is excellent. So just to review some of the reasons, in my opinion, that athletes may not ask for help. Number 1, fear of appearing weak. Number 2, perfectionism and imposter syndrome. 3, fear of losing competitive advantage. Number 4, learned self-reliance through culture. How can some of this actually hurt performance? We've talked about it a little bit, but just to make it really specific now, chronic stress from carrying it all on your own, struggling alone, can impair memory, your focus, learning of skills. And if you are isolating yourself and not seeking external support, it is a higher possibility of you getting to a burnout or just losing all motivation. And this is where, every single one of us has benefited from someone grabbing us and being like, we're going, whether you like it or not. And you need that sometimes. You need that push. And yeah, we're people. And doing it all on our own is just very challenging. Sometimes we make our own world small. So, for example, we might not recognize where we could improve something. Maybe you're missing something effective in training. Maybe there are certain things in your nutrition that could be improved, or you weren't thinking about it in the first place, and mental preparation. So, all of these things that aren't afterthoughts. It's not having willpower and pushing through just because you're tough. It's also like, hey, we need holistic nutrition. We need fuel to perform and recover mentally, emotionally, and physically. We have mindset and mental preparation. That's also an entire space that isn't in reaction. It's learning how to manage stress. It's learning how to reframe some of the worries and anxieties and nervousness. It's recognizing how to flip certain things to be advantageous for higher performance. All of that to say is having external perspective and other eyes looking is actually greatly beneficial. If I have a combat athlete, they have their other coaches. I'm the nutritionist in this aspect. I have a lot of my one-on-one clients where there's been other professionals that have sent them to me. It's been a referral from like a physio or a therapist, and then I've been given contacts within my scope, and we work together to make sure that the client receives all the support that they need. So if you sought help, it's like you've created a little team. Great. It's accepting and understanding that vulnerability can build resilience, not lead to weakness. And it's recognizing that strong athletes, the elite of the elite, are not doing it on their own. And they do have systems and a team. And it could be from coaches to therapists to nutritionists, other support network, close friends, confidants, because they know that their performance is a team effort. Now, the strongest competitors are the ones who try to improve all aspects of their preparation, including their mindset and mental preparation. What are the steps one can take in order to become a strong athlete? Start thinking of help as optimization, not weakness. Build your support network. Practice vulnerabilities with comfort and openness. Recognize that asking for help is actually a skill that takes time to practice, like any other skill. Asking for help, it gets a bit more comfortable when you start to ask and receive, and ultimately understand that your struggles do not make you weak, they make you human. And welcome to being human. We are social creatures, especially when it comes to sport, because you can't really do it on your own. Also, why? One thing I love so much about sport is the fact that it's this like international experience, that even if we don't speak the same language, we could still do it. It's just an immediate connection piece as humans, and it's wonderful. So if you recognize yourself in some of the things we spoke about and you're trying to put together your team and you want to consider me as part of it, you can check out how to work with me one, or consider the Level Up Method, which is my cohort that I run that is all about nutrition, mindset, and teamwork. In closing, strength does not mean silence. It means having the courage to ask for help. You can either choose to keep struggling alone and limiting your potential, or you can build a support network to push your potential and to see how far the rabbit hole goes. And ultimately, the beauty of sport is to do things we thought we couldn't do and to push ourselves and to gain more confidence and then to do more incredible things with it. And I find sport itself so incredibly empowering. And I am personally committed to being able to contribute to it in my tiny sliver of the universe. So, what's the hardest thing for you to ask for help with? Please share in the comments and subscribe if you're looking for more human first content. Thank you so much. Catch you next time.